Today we're chatting with Julian Hosp. How you doing, Julian?
Hey Alex, doing wonderful.
Awesome. To get started, you wrote a great book, and the first question I want to ask you is, if you were to tell yourself any story in your younger mindset, what story would you tell yourself?
I would tell my younger self as early as possible, you are the average of the five people you spend the most time with. It's such a blunt saying. I learned it when I was 25 years old. I wish I would have learned it when I was 15. Would have changed my life.
Right. And I asked you that question because you wrote a great book, The 25 Stories I Would Have Told My Younger Self, an aspiring motivational blueprint for millennials on how to seamlessly make small decisions that are often huge and unexpected impact on our lives. So give us a little bit of background. You're now based in Hong Kong. How did you get there? You're a professional kite surfer. You're sponsored by some awesome brands. Tell us about that exciting life you got going on.
Sure, would love to. Well, I'm originally from Austria, and that's not Australia. Many people, they always confuse Austria with the kangaroos. So we have no kangaroos. We have snow and mountains. So I'm from Central Europe and grew up there. Was 16. I moved to the US, went to high school there, and had a fantastic time, changed my life. It was great. I had the goal to study medicine. And I studied medicine, but at the same time, I learned about kite surfing, just like you mentioned. And I was at the right place, the right time, became a professional kite surfer, traveled the world for 10 years while studying medicine. So this was really a lot of hustle.
Wow.
And finished med school when I was 24, started working in the south of Germany in Munich, and realized, okay, if I want to kite surf in my life, I cannot be a medical doctor. Those two things don't work together. And quit working as a medical doctor. That destroyed my parents to a certain extent. And I said, okay, if I need to get out of this, and I moved as far away as possible for a certain time, and that was Hong Kong. And so that's how I ended up here 3.5 years ago. And I mean, many of those decisions didn't make any sense at the time making them, but today they were the best and smartest decisions I could have ever taken.
Yeah, so that's probably a big scenario that a lot of younger entrepreneurs go through. Their parents have expectations of what they want them to be, and you obviously want to make your parents proud. Tell us a little bit. How did that feel to make that decision? You spent the time while traveling the world, studying and focusing on your kite surfing as well. I mean, kite surfing is dramatically tiring. I mean, and then you have to study after that. How did that mindset?
I mean, I've always been a very hard worker, and I think you have to be if you really want to get stuff done. I mean, you're not going to get stuff for free, if you want to call it, like not in monetary terms. We're talking about energy wise, right? I was always a very hard worker. When I think that the most important thing that people misunderstand is they think too short term when they talk about quitting something or changing their direction in life. I think this is such a predefined area by society where they say, you study you study in a field, and afterwards you have to work in that field because it's like connected. To me, looking backwards, I realized that studying medicine was an important chapter in my life, and it was crucial because it opened a lot of doors later on, and it is really important. But to me, it doesn't mean I study medicine and I become a medical doctor afterwards. I also believe, I mean, this is maybe a bit unrelated, but I think, like, for example, Mark Zuckerberg going to Harvard and then starting Facebook, I think this was a necessary combination, simply because I don't think he would have started Facebook had he not gone to Harvard. So did he quit Harvard? I don't think so. I think it was the essential stepping stone for him to do something. Just in the eyes of our society, we say he quit college, or I did not work as a medical doctor even though I studied for 6 years. I don't see it this way. And I think this is an important, it's a mindset.
Yep. Yeah, because you're building that foundation, hard work, consistency of effort, being reliable and showing up, learning something that's difficult. When as entrepreneurs, we don't know the path ahead of us. We can't see the light through the trees. So a lot of times, there's a great quote, and I'm going to really butcher it, by Steve Jobs, but you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back, because you see that those steps that maybe you went to school, maybe you left school, those were essential to propel you, because those times of uncertainty are the times that you grow the most.
You're so right. I think that quote, Alex, it's one of my most favorite quotes. And I think with Steve Jobs, it was exactly the same thing. He went to college, he studied calligraphy there. He didn't finish college, but it was essential for him, whatever he did afterwards. And I think that's what we have to start being more open to. I'm a big believer, and in the book I write a lot about that it's not so much about what you do right now, but it is about what you do right now, and you can learn for the future so that you grow as a person. And I feel this is so much more important than to just say, okay, I have a medical doctor degree. The key question is, what do I take away from that? Which connections, what knowledge, how can I grow as a person afterwards? And if I use that to work as a medical doctor, as a surgeon, which I originally had planned, that's great. But if I use that knowledge and say, you know what, I have so much knowledge for psychology, I learned so much about human behavior, you know what? That's going to help me so much in marketing, because I can talk to people in a total different way simply because I have all this scientific background. Yeah. And many people don't see it this way. I'm really fortunate I do.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, you built that foundation for your success. Now, so let's talk about the book. Why don't you give us a couple of stories? Maybe I could pull some questions on that. That you have 25 different stories I would tell my younger self. What would be some of the other ones?
So, I mean, out of the 25 stories, they are ranked chronologically. Okay. And basically, I really quickly want to tell you why I wrote the book. All these 25 stories, they have in total 75 life lessons. So each story has 3 lessons. But I started my own company, so I had to do a lot of sales. Just like in any company, you have to convince other people to buy into your product, into your ideas, into your vision, and so on. And I realized if I try to sell the fact of my company, then that's great, but no one's going to buy into that.
Right.
But if I tell people an awesome story around it and the beauty of the entire thing, and then I combine it with some facts, and suddenly people started buying into my vision, and they were like, wow, I love that. That's great. So when I stepped away from that last year and I started doing coaching with people, I realized the same thing happened there. If I would just tell people and say, hey, you know what? If you are interested in doing investing, then, these are the 3 things you should care about. They walk out of the door and they have forgotten all 3 points.
Right.
But if I told them my story, how I lost 90,000 euros in 1 week, and the drama I went through and how I almost wanted to kill myself, and then I tell them, look, had I done those 3 things differently, I would have not made that. Mm-hmm. The people are going to walk out there and they're like, you know what? I don't want to be down there where Julian was. I'm going to take those 3 things by heart.
Yeah.
And so in all those 25 stories, I have these dramatic stories, I have really hilarious stories, I have funny stories, I have shocking stories, and all with the point of getting the lessons into the people. So when they finish the story, they don't forget those 3 lessons attached to the story.
Very cool. Very interesting. That's people learn through a narrative naturally. So it's great that you do that. I know that I'm doing that with my public speaking, even how I pitch potential consulting clients. They want to learn through stories.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think that's the key, right? I think it's so many people, they when they talk to them, they talk about the features, they talk about facts. Yeah, these are all great. But at the end of the day, think about what do you remember still from the day before. You remember this extraordinary story, and then you connect the certain facts and figures to that. And so, I mean, at the very beginning of these stories, the first 5 stories, they were really young. I was really young. I was 4 years old all the way to junior high. And there my mom had a huge an impact on me, because my mom, she was really strict when I was growing up. And she was the person who instilled this initial mindset on hard work, consistency, learning to delay gratification, understanding that in life, everything is about giving value if you want something in return. She instilled these things in a very, very young age. And I mean, for example, I have this story where I had to grow a tree. And it's a second story, and it's me learning to grow a tree. And so I buy this little peach seedling, plant it, and I mean, I don't know, Alex, if you've ever grown a tree, but it's the most frustrating thing in the world.
Yeah, it is.
Because you don't see anything for months. I think I didn't see nothing for a year. It drove me cuckoo, and I almost wanted to quit. And actually, I was that close on quitting. Mm-hmm. But it teaches you so much about being patient, about having faith. It teaches you about building a business, because I mean, I had no clue about building a business at the age of 5 or 6, right? But I understood, okay, I put a seedling in, I have to water it, nothing's going to happen. But after 6 months, you're just so frustrated. You want to dig that thing back out, and it's the worst thing you could do. Mm-hmm. So I learned a lot from that looking back. And I mean, I tell you, in the last couple of years in Hong Kong, there were so many times I wanted to quit, I wanted to give up. I said, this is not going to work. Mm-hmm. And whenever I sat there, and it reminded me myself. I said, you know what, Julian, you've been there when you were 6 years old. So you can do this when you're 27. Who are you kidding, right?
Yeah.
And so that was one of the key, I think that's one of the most memorable lessons and stories that I can remember from back then. Yeah.
Yeah. And as we were talking before we got started, and take a step back here, you did the medical education, then you did the professional kiteboarding, you were doing it all at the same time, and then you started a business and sold it. Can you take us a little bit through that journey? I'm sure it would resonate with people on how they're maybe building their own SaaS companies and potentially want to sell them.
So I was in working as a medical doctor. I was going to be a traumatologist, a surgeon, and I realized a couple of months in that, I mean, and this is one of the things that I really want to inspire people. I think I know some people, they maybe are already at that step where they're like, okay, I want to start my own thing. To me, I meet so many people, they are not 100% sure. And I mean, I'm talking about certain that you want to do this, because at the end, it comes down to what's in your heart. You're going to make it happen if you really want to do it. So how did I have this conviction? How was I 1,000,000% sure that I was going to do it? And it was a very simple thing. I mean, it's a very popular quote. It's a famous quote. If you keep doing what you have been doing, you keep getting what you have been getting. Well, it also applies if you follow in the footsteps of someone who walked the path already, you're going to reach the same goal. It's a very no-brainer thing. So when I was working as a medical doctor, I looked at the doctors who were 10 years ahead of me. And I looked at them. I looked at their lives. I looked, do I want to end up like they end up? And I said, I'm not sure. I talked to them. I wasn't sure. 20 years. No, it looked even worse. They were still working. They were still 60 hours, 70 hours, no free time. 30 years, 40 years. There was not one. I mean, of course, there were the exceptions of doctors who had what I wanted to have, but there were so few that I realized, you know what? If I keep working in this hospital, I'm going to end up where they ended up. And this instilled over a couple of weeks this massive drive that I had to change something. And I think this is, I mean, Tony Robbins always says it so well. You make a decision in an instant. A decision doesn't take years. It comes in an instant. But the question is, what do you build up to that instant when you have this massive change? And it's normally something, a revelation or something that's really shocking. And to me, this is exactly what it is. And so the first thing when I work with people today, I always try to tell them, I try to bring something really shocking to them, that when they go home, that they never forget that this is their inspiration, their driver, their momentum, that when they are out there and they really want to do this change, they're not going to chicken out. And This is the key thing to start.
Yeah. And what was the actual business that you created and sold?
Of course. So then afterwards, I quit medicine. I had no clue what to do. So I went with a very good friend that I had always been surfing with, and we started traveling. I had to get away. There were so many people against this, right? And so I understood, okay, and this is the second thing before I talk more into the business. The second thing, when you make a decision that you want to change something, it reminds me of the Truman Show. If you remember the Truman Show, Truman says, you know what? I wanna find out what's outside of my world. So he makes this decision and he starts looking for solutions and answers. And then suddenly, the creator of the world starts putting everything against him and tries to actually make him drown, right? And this is the same in our world. As soon as you start getting away from you have to be prepared that the universe goes against you. So that was this thing that happened. My parents were against me. My best friends were against me. And my girlfriend back then was against me. Everyone that I know said that what I'm doing is absolutely stupid. And if you're not strong and you know this is going to happen, and you're not convinced that this is what you want to do, you're going to do exactly what most people do. Namely, you turn around and you say, you know what, you're totally right. A stupid idea. I'm going to keep working and keep going. So this is my second really important thing. So I said, okay, if I stay there, I'm going to get nuts. So I took, together with my friend, started backpacking, took away no tech. We had no phones, nothing. So nobody could reach me, right? It was wonderful. Of course, I had some doubts, right? I was in Thailand, for example, and we were just sleeping on the beach surfing. Of course, you lie there and you're like, oh my gosh, I just quit my medical doctor's job. What an idiot, right? So of course you have that. But if you burn kind of the boat, so there's no way back, right? Mm-hmm. So that was that. And then I always believe if you're open and you're prepared, opportunity strikes. And so opportunity struck for me because I had suddenly two other friends actually who reached out to me who said, hey, we would love to start an e-commerce business, an app, similar like Groupon, just back then in Europe, this was very not popular, where people get special shopping deals.
Yeah.
And I loved the idea. It was an app business. I'm not a programmer, but they were. So they had all the tech side. And I knew them from some time ago. And they said, you know what? We need someone who would be open to work with us in the south of Germany. And well, you kind of quit your job. So what are you doing? I said, you know what? That's wonderful. I would be totally open to that. Okay, so we started working. And this is the first thing that I feel as a young entrepreneur you have to learn. And that was the hardest thing for me. I don't know how this was for you, Alex, but for me, I had to get my time management totally straightened out.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, I was working as a doctor. That meant I had someone telling me what I had to do. So I had someone who told me, Julian, tomorrow 6 a.m., this is when we have a doctor's meeting. 8 a.m. is your first surgery. 9 p.m., and basically your entire 60 hours, 70 hours a week was straightened out. And everything else evolves around this. Well, guess what? Now I had no boss. So I remember the first week I was back in Munich, I mean, my days were just screwed up. I got up 10 a.m., got nothing done until 1 p.m. Why? I mean, I was my own boss, right? And at 10 days into the entire operation, I realized, oh my gosh, if I keep doing like this, it's not gonna work.
Right.
So the first thing I had to do, and this is, I think, one of the key skills a young entrepreneur has to learn, is proper time management. This was so important.
Yeah.
And this was the first thing that I had to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Breaking up your weeks into intentional days and then breaking those days into intentional 3 to 5 things you're going to do per day is essential. I know for me, it's pretty, basically Monday and Friday are kind of free for alls, but Tuesday and Thursdays are basically dedicated client work days, and then Wednesdays, like today is actually podcast day. So I basically batch everything, and you're able to accomplish a lot more. If you want to go surfing on Monday, you can go surfing on Monday, but Tuesdays and Thursdays, those are super dedicated to getting that client work done.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, it even goes down to smaller things. I mean, it starts with something as silly as smartphones. I mean, all of us, we don't think much about phones, right? But when we are at work and you would answer a private phone call, I mean, at least in a hospital, it is impossible because I wasn't allowed to bring a cell phone into anywhere, right? We had always our little hospital phones, right? But so suddenly I was my own boss. Well, guess what? My mom's calling. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, it's my mom, right? So I pick up. Well, guess what happens? I'm kind of screwing up my work at the moment. Well, next thing, WhatsApp comes in from a good friend of mine. How is the wind? Okay, I'm answering. Well, so all these things, private email. I think it comes down to these small little housekeeping things where you're really keeping your day clean, how I call it, where you really, hey, when you work, you work. And when you're off, like you said, you're off. But it really goes down to those small nitty gritty things because they're going to change a lot in your productivity schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure being a professional athlete, the consistency of scheduling to get things done because your mindset, you're like, oh, this is my day to accomplish this. And you're like, boom, I'm going to, because you're excited about it, because you know that there's going to be opportunity to do maybe other things that aren't related to work later.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I think, and I mean, really anyone who's listening that, I mean, I hope that I'm really clear on the first thing you need to find is you need to find your key driver why you're doing this. And I'm really stressing on this because otherwise you're always going to go back into your other plan. And I mean, you will face so many challenges, right? I mean, I give you an example so we did really well in Europe and then we said, okay, you know what? We want to go into the Asian market. And so I said, you know what? I want to leave Europe because I want to get far away from all this that I'm used to. So I'm super happy to go there. And the future looked bright. And I mean, Asia, right? And it's like wonderful. I went to Asia and in the first 9 months, I mean, I almost bankrupted the company because we had no sales. It was nothing was happening. And I mean, it was just a disaster. And over and over again, I doubted that I had made the right decision. And if I hadn't, what I call, and it's one story in my entire book, Story 24, that I call burning the boats. I think so many people, they don't burn the boats. And with that, I mean, you don't necessarily burn everything you have at home, but you kind of make it really hard for you to sail back, if you want to call it this way. And so I really had burned my boat. I sold even my car. I sold my apartment. I had shipped all my stuff to Asia. So for me, I could have always gone back, yes, but it would have been really a hassle. And so I mean, there was a couple of times when I was just like really crying in my apartment in Hong Kong. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just not going to work out. We're not going to make it happen. But in the next second, I said, I have no option. I need to make this happen, right?
Awesome.
So it was this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And this was the only way. I think if you're persistent, at some point, the universe is going to give you way and you're going to succeed. And I think this is so important. So the first and most important thing is you need to have your key driver. You need to know why you're doing this. Yeah. And then afterwards, you need to learn the skills. And to me, one of the key skills is time management. I see so many entrepreneurs fail because their time management are screwed up because they're still in their employee mindset. I think that's such a difficult thing. And then from that afterwards, I mean, many skills you learn along the way. I had to learn so many things, just like how do I pitch? I never had to pitch. Patients came to me. They were like, I'm sorry, I have this. I didn't have to pitch to patients to come to me. They came automatically. But now suddenly was the opposite way. I had to convince future retailers. I had to convince customer bases and so on. So it was a total different thing. But I think you learn this along the way. But I think you need to have some ground key concepts at the beginning.
Yeah. So you guys built it up. You got some, I guess, traction on it, and then you guys ended up selling it. Can you tell us a little bit about exiting?
Yeah, so of course. So this was last year. We didn't sell it. But for me over time, maybe also because I was in Asia and we had so many other competitors coming around. To me, I didn't see, let's say it like this, if I want to be politically correct, me and the others who started at the very beginning kind of lived apart with what our vision was for the future.
Sure.
And on the one hand, I felt if I was going to stay, I would be more of a block than a help. And at the same time, I felt that if I would start convincing the others to change, it would go maybe the wrong way. So At the end, I stepped out. And I mean, there was two others who also stepped out because they were kind of on the same angle as we are.
Right.
But at the end, all of us had really great financial benefits from what we had achieved. So I think it was a win-win. The company's doing great. I mean, they're doing well here. They have tons of revenue. I think it's really wonderful. I think at the end, it was a win-win, even though for a couple of weeks back then, I wasn't sure. It was not sure who's gonna have a bad sour taste at the end. But at the end, no one had actually, because I think now everybody's happy. So that's pretty good.
But the goal was to build it up for the intent to becoming financially free.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, the financial aspect, financial is really important to me just because I love this concept of to me, I love this concept of when I have a family, I don't have a family yet, that I can take care of my family, whether I'm healthy or whether I'm sick, that they are taken care of. That's really important to me. I still have this really traditional feeling that me being a future husband is taking care of the smallest unit in a community, and that's the family. And I want to be able to feed that, right? And so that was always really important to me. So yeah, whether I'm sick or whether I'm healthy, right? And so if you just have a job, and I don't want to discredit a job, like jobs are really great, right? But if I just have a job and I cannot work in this job anymore and that income dries out and I don't have anything else, then I would not have this feeling that I would be like, oh yeah, I feel good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You understand what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So as we close out, let's tell people how they can find the book and find out more about you.
Sure, would love to. So best way to get the book is actually here, 25stories.org. That's my website. You can read about the book. You can get all kinds of details on there. You find all kinds of social media. I'm most on Facebook just because that's where all my friends are on and everything is on. So that's facebook.com/25stories. That's the best way to connect with me. I would love to hear your feedback, and you can test read some of the stories. Let me know which one inspires you the most.
Excellent. To close out, what would be the next step that young entrepreneurs should take to set their future up for success? What would you tell someone? Obviously, read my book, but what would be the next step that they should really take?
I don't get this question a lot. I think it's one of the key questions you're just asking me. And when I always think what sets successful entrepreneurs apart from the ones that don't make it is that the successful ones, they play their strengths and they compensate with other people for their weaknesses.
Right.
Whereas the unsuccessful entrepreneurs, they try to do it all and thereby totally diluting their actual strengths. So if you want to be a good entrepreneur, solopreneur, whatever, play your strengths, and you're probably not going to have many. You have maybe two, but most of the people only have one really good strength. And you want to drive that strength, and you want to find other great people who are going to help you for those things that you can't do so well. And then you're going to be the superstar.
Excellent answer. Thanks a lot for your time, Julian.
Thanks, Alex. Hey, it was a pleasure.
For weekly new episodes and an archive of over 100 digital marketing experts, make sure you go visit the website marketingoptimization.tv. And remember, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Later.